Mask of a Diva, a Stan Kraychik mystery, Book 4, 1994. Author, Grant Michaels. Publisher, St. Martin's Press, New York. Author, Eric Aust. For all the divas, operatic and otherwise. Chapter 10. When Hwang and April saw me walking up the aisle toward them, they stopped talking. I waved casually. April stared back dubiously, then glanced toward Hwang, who was trying to determine whether I was friend or foe. "I'm with wigs and makeup," I said, and told them my name. "Oh," said April with a deadpan face. I sensed she was relieved to pigeonhole me along with the rest of the festival staff, the non-signing pedestrians. To her, I had been reduced to no threat, no bother, and with any luck, no further contact. Meanwhile, Hwang was forcing an over-friendly smile that carried a different version of the same message. "Nice to meet you. Go away." I said, "Pretty awful what happened, huh?" They both nodded gloomily and replied simultaneously, "Tragic. Horrible." "Did you know him?" I said. They both shook their head no, but Hwang said, "He was the assistant director." I corrected him. "Set designer." They nodded quickly in agreement. I could tell I was making them nervous. Perhaps they were hiding something, or perhaps they were just feeling guilty, as if I'd caught them in flagrante. In thought, if not in action. I went on. "Kind of ironic that he was hit by a piece of his own stage work." Then April scowled and said, "Are you an undercover cop or something?" "Hardly. I'm just curious. I was wondering if either of you recall seeing anyone suspicious backstage just before the accident." "Sure," said Hwang. "I saw you." "Me?" He nodded. "Yeah, I saw you hanging around back there just before it happened." I protested. "But I was sitting out here with Miss Davenport. I heard you sing." "She could verify it." Hwang shrugged. "Then it's my word against hers, but I'm sure I saw you back there, or someone who looks just like you." Then that big fake grin reappeared on his face, and he almost snarled when he added, "So why don't you just mind your own business and tend to the wigs and makeup?" Hwang Young Cho was taking his role of Renato too seriously. April Kilkus said, "If you're not with the police, you have no business asking us questions." "Doll," I said, "I'm just making conversation. We've all been through a major trauma together. Sharing the stress helps dissipate the negative impact of the event and starts the healing process." April stifled a laugh. "You sound ridiculous." Hwang said, "If you don't mind, stop harassing us. I'll get one of those officers to evict you." "Fine," I thought. "Wait until it's time for your wig fitting." I walked toward the rear exit of the auditorium, wondering why they had behaved so guiltily when I approached them, and then turned on me so suddenly. All I did was invade their privacy. Perhaps they were already clandestine lovers. That might explain their irritation, and if they really didn't know Adam Pierce, there was no reason that his death, no matter how sudden or bizarre, should bother them at all, unless their intended victim was one of the others who'd been on stage at the time, and they had bungled their chance. God, what was wrong with me? I was too ready and eager to accuse someone, anyone, two secret lovers even, of Adam Pierce's accidental death. Maybe it was the result of too much opera all at once. At the upper end of the aisle, just before the foyer and the doors to the lobby, I saw two people sitting in the last row of the orchestra, where it was dark in spite of the house lights. They were Rhonda Luca, the stage manager, and Carolyn Boetz, the rehearsal pianist. Carolyn had removed her eyeglasses, and even in the darkness I could see that her big round eyes were teary. Rhonda saw me and said, "You still here?" I replied, "I have to wait around. I'm driving some of the stars back to the estate. Have the cops questioned you yet?" Rhonda said, "Me, yeah, but they don't bother me. I'm used to them, but Carolyn is still waiting her turn, so I'm giving her some pointers on how to deal with them." "Just don't put words in her mouth," I said. "Cops always know when they're lying, and they'll shake you down." Rhonda snapped, "Who said anything about lying?" "Sorry," I said. "Must be nerves." "Not mine," said Rhonda. "Maybe yours." Carolyn Boetz said nothing, but gazed at me wide-eyed. I left them and was just about to open the lobby door. Then I turned back for one more question, just like Columbo. "By the way," I said to Rhonda, "do you know anything about minivans?" Rhonda answered, "Are you kidding? I can drive an 18-wheeler. "Then maybe you can tell me if I did the right thing today," I said. I explained to her about the blown fuse earlier that day in the van, how it had seemed rigged to fail, and how I had fixed it. "I'd get a real fuse in there soon," she said, "before you blow out the whole ignition system." Through the dimness, I sensed her eyeing me curiously. Then she added, "I wouldn't expect you to be so mechanical." "My father always wanted a son," I replied. "So did mine," said Rhonda. "But yours got one." She gave a small laugh in spite of herself. I went out into the lobby where the glass-paneled walls were letting in the bright afternoon sunlight. Within minutes, a huge white sedan pulled up in front of the Opera House. The young driver leaped out. It was Rick Jansen. He came into the lobby, gawked at me, then scowled as he opened one of the doors to the auditorium. I said, "The police are in there. You might want to wait out here for Mr. Byers." He jeered. "You can't scare me, faggot." Then he marched proudly into the jaws to hell and left me wondering if I was a faggot and he was being boogered by Jonathan Byers, what exactly distinguished us. I wandered around the lobby a while, passing time until the police finished interrogating an operatic big shots. I kind of hoped that Maurizio might show up, but he never did. Finally, I got tired of waiting around, so I went back into the auditorium. I got there just in time to see Madama Ostinata coming out from her lengthy session with the police. She must have told them her life story. Mathilda rushed in to her side and offered her a pill and a glass of water. Madama refused the pill, but took some water with a dramatic toss of her head. She grimaced at the aftertaste and then muttered loud enough for everyone in the house to hear, "Non son Pellegrino." I went down front and told the four of them, Madama, the Maestro, Bruce David, and Mathilda, that I would be driving them all back to the estate. Once again, the Maestro asked me for a light, but I couldn't help him. But then he snapped his fingers and reached into his jacket pocket to produce the same gold lighter he'd used earlier, as if it were a new toy he'd momentarily forgot about. Then remembered. Still, I made a mental note to arm myself with a Bic flick just to keep the old man lit and happy in the future. With Madama Ostinata's questioning finished, they were all ready to go. During the ride back, Bruce David sat up front with me and rattled on about the violation of his rights. "As soon as we're back on the estate, I'm going to call my agent and my attorney. I expect compensation for this kind of abuse. We're artists, not dogs." Meanwhile, the two Italians murmured quietly from the seat behind us. I caught occasional phrases that I could understand, but the gist of their talk seemed to be focused on Madama's flight back to Italy, and her contract be damned. Again, what impressed me about the language was that the message seemed to be carried in the pitch, that the dynamics, the music, as much as in the actual words. They kept their voices low, just beneath the hum of the minivan's motor and Bruce David's prattling, so that all I could hear from behind me were the sounds of muffled Italian vowels, as though they were speaking in another room. Then suddenly Mathilda blurted something from the back of the minivan, which caused Madama to exclaim, "Tassi?" It must have been the superlative equivalent of Silenzio, because we rode the rest of the way in utter silence while I wondered when and if my makeshift fuse would melt the minivan's electrical system. That night I telephoned Nicole from the cottage to let her know what had happened and that I was all right. An association with corpses seems to be becoming part of my life. Nicole wanted assurance that Adam Pierce's death was an accident. As far as the facts go, doll, it was an accident. But what do you think, darling? I paused. Nikki, I hope my instinct is wrong. I switched the talk to something more agreeable. It turned out my sugar baby, my truest one and only, was adapting just fine without me. She loves fresh cab, said Nicole. You told me she didn't eat it. No, doll. I told you not to give it to her. Now I'll have to wean her off it again. Have you called Parachette? She said. Like me, Nicole often changed subjects willy-nilly. It was usually a way to prevent boredom, hardly ever to avoid conflict. Should I? I said. Don't you want to? I might look insecure. Don't fight your destiny, darling. We said goodbye. Then I fought my destiny and won the current round. I didn't call Paris. For the time being, I would appear strong and independent to whoever it was I was trying to impress. I turned in for the night and was just entering the realm of the nether senses when Maurizio arrived soundlessly. He shucked his clothes and then slid between the sheets where he snuggled and cried and finally slept in his arms around me. There was no sex this time, so I guess you could say I was faithful again. Gay Mysteries audiobooks. I think it is easy to hate a label, but a face humanizes the word. So this effort is twofold. To offer comfort to those like myself that your world didn't end because you don't fit into the view of acceptable society on both sides. And in hopes of helping those with family that are LGBTQ, that it doesn't mean we are aliens from the child they once knew. Reassure them so they can maybe be supportive at the same time, being true to their values.